Dillon is a UW graduate, and he was a former football player, quarterback of the football team. In fact, I think you were recently given an award.
Yeah, just got inducted in the Hall of Fame.
DW Hall of Fame. Dillon worked his first job, I believe, out of college. Well, first job wildlife related anyway, was to work as what most people call, I suppose, a state trapper.
Mm-hmm.
What was the official title of that? Damage control specialist?
Yeah, wildlife damage specialist.
Yeah, working for the state. He's now jumped over to working for the USDA, which is U.S. Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services with the federal government. And I haven't really kept up with Dillon for a while, last couple of years, so I don't know too much about what he does in his job, and so I'll be learning quite a bit from this as well. So I'll let you just go ahead and take over. Let me get the camera started here. Oh, I got it already. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, so as Dr. Malcolm was saying, went to DW here. Resident school, I interned with the Game and Fish for 3 years. My first internship was a habitat specialist, and I did 2 years as a wildlife damage specialist. After college, I started with the Game and Fish in November of 2019 as a full-time wildlife damage specialist here in Mitchell. And I was there for 3 years, and then I got the opportunity to move over to the USDA APHIS Wildlife Services, which APHIS is Animal Plant Health Inspection Services. Just thought it was a good opportunity for me, and I just started that in March of 21, so I'm going on my second year in March of 23 here. This slide kind of just, so USDA APHIS Wildlife Services is in all 50 states across the U.S. North Dakota, South Dakota is kind of the one we're combined, so we just do everything together. This will just kind of break down what we do in North Dakota, South Dakota, but there are multiple different things that I'll kind of cover like other states do, but we'll just kind of go through this. If you got any questions or anything, just don't hesitate to ask. So this is our mission statement, whatever. You can see here, so this is for North Dakota. There's 9 regions, there's 9 guys. These guys are trappers, kind of like what I was. They assist landowners that are experiencing wildlife conflict, personal conflict with private property. So coyotes will come in and kill a lamb or a calf, or deer eating their hay, or geese eating soybeans. Anything that wildlife can cause conflict with your personal interest, pretty much. In South Dakota, this is kind of just breaking down the funding. So this is actually what my full-time job is. We fly around that little yellow plane, and we do predator control work pretty much for farmers in South Dakota, primarily for me. North Dakota does the same thing also. But a farmer will have a problem with, in most of our instances, coyotes. They'll come in and kill a calf, or predate on some sheep or something like that, and then they'll call the state trapper, which was my previous job, and then they call us saying, hey, we'd like to use the airplane to control some coyotes. So we'll fly around on guys' private ranches and properties and look for coyotes. This is kind of just a breakdown. This is not this year, but last year. 781 hours of hunting that we did in the state of South Dakota. 4,234 coyotes were removed in the state. So there's a lot of those out there, if you didn't know. Another thing that we kind of do in our job is we do beaver removals or damage. A lot of people are like, oh, this cute fuzzy beaver is nice and pretty. Well, then they start eating on their trees that they have at their nice home by the lake, and they don't really love beavers anymore. So yeah, as you can see here, here's some damage that they can cause. Chew on trees mostly, primarily, but they do a lot of, can destruction of road and stuff like that. But I've seen a lot of beaver damage where it's costing landowners thousands of dollars. I mean, they come in and plant a tree row for pheasant hunting or erosion along a lake or a creek bank, and then the beaver just comes in and chews every tree down. And so it costs a lot of money for the producers to plant trees just for the beaver to come in and chew them down. But these are things that you'd be doing if you were to get into a job like I have. You would be assisting landowners, talking to them, individually. They'd call you, and you'd have to go out, assess the problem, and remove the beavers. Here's just some numbers that the guys up in North Dakota, I believe, did this one, but 305 properties they worked on, removed 141 beavers, it looked like. Here's so I went to a meeting in Colorado here, I don't know, late last year, and the main focus was coyote management pretty much on livestock. They said they've been doing coyote management for hundreds of years now. They say that it's not going anywhere. There's always going to be work for coyotes around livestock, which is pretty reassuring for a guy like me who's made a living pretty much now controlling coyotes, and it's reassuring to know that there's always going to be funding for that kind of work. So it's a pretty, I tell people all the time, I think it's pretty crazy that a guy like myself can make a career hunting coyotes. Most people just do it for fun. I get to do it for a living, and it's always going to be around. So as you can see here, $3 million in losses in North Dakota from coyote predation on sheep and cattle. 61% predator-related losses nationwide are attributed to coyotes. So that's the main contributor to most predation, not mountain lions that you'll hear from a lot of people or things like that. So it's just some more numbers that they put together. Another thing that's really popular here in South Dakota and North Dakota is managing Canadian geese. Canadian geese, we're kind of in a nesting area here in South Dakota, North Dakota. They just, whenever they have their goslings, they'll walk up onto, somebody's farm, and they just pick at the soybeans. And I've seen them cause thousands and thousands of dollars of damage. I think the worst one I've ever seen is like 25 acres of beans that they'd eaten. At $16, $17 a bushel beans, it's a lot of money that the farmer's losing. When I was working for the Game and Fish, I had interns every summer, and this was their primary job duties, or building electric fence to keep Canadian geese from walking up onto the land and eating the beans. It's really good. It's really good for college kids to get that experience of talking to landowners, kind of working with them, handling high stress situations. I've been cussed out many times by landowners saying these you effing geese and blah blah blah, but being able to calm them down and say we can help. So you can see here the goslings here, they can't fly in this stage of the adults, or the goslings can't fly, so they just walk up out of the water. And you got to use methods of fencing. There's propane boomers that you can use to haze them out of there. Landowners can get kill permits where they're allowed to shoot a certain amount of geese to kind of scare them away. You can see here, this is a good example of all the goose damage that's kind of through here. The geese are just walking up out of the slough, I'm guessing, and causing damage there. But just some more numbers of things that they do in North Dakota. The Game and Fish here provides a lot of assistance to landowners in the state of South Dakota. I know alone in Mitchell, I bet I built 40 fences a summer, so doing a lot more fences in South Dakota. Another big thing that we do with the USDA is blackbird damage management in sunflowers. The sunflowers organization in South Dakota forks up a lot of money for us to come in and assist landowners on blackbirds damaging sunflowers. As you can see here in this picture, blackbirds will just land on the sunflowers and they just pick all the, I don't even know what they're called, they're kernels or whatever, but they just go around and pick all the stuff out of the sunflower and cause a lot of damage. There's a video on here, let's see if I can get it to work. It's kind of an example of how many blackbirds can be in a sunflower field there. Can do quite a bit of damage pretty quickly. But yeah, that's just something else that we do. It's more numbers. Don't really assist a whole lot to that, but another opportunity with our organization is working for our Air Force Base. There's 2 in South Dakota that we are at currently right now. One in Rapid City, and we just hired a girl for Sioux Falls. They kind of assist. So I don't know if you guys remember the big plane crash that happened in the Hudson River that was caused by a goose strike. Pretty much from that moment on, we've had full-time employees at airports, at especially the big airports like Chicago, O'Hare, but even at Air Force bases to help prevent bird strikes from happening, so nothing like that ever happens again. I know there's still a lot of bird strikes that happen, but this guy I believe is up in Fargo, but his primary duties are keeping birds off the runways and stuff, but he does a lot of raptor control. They have these big like hoop nets and all sorts of different traps that they use, but these raptors cause a lot of, just a lot of safety issues around the airports. And they'll trap them and then they'll relocate them off somewhere else. They have a ton of data on how far they have to take them so they don't ever come back. I don't really know all the numbers, but it's pretty amazing how far they actually have to take them. There's a case where a lady trapped one and took it down to Kansas, and it came back like within 2 or 3 weeks. It found its way back. So they're pretty smart, really, when you think about it. You can see here mostly the hawks that are taken are red-tailed hawks or great horned owls. Those are the primary the raptors that they deal with. But that's a really big thing across the U.S. There's a ton of job openings that come with the airport. It's called a airport biologist, but they haze geese, they trap the raptors, they do a lot of like ground squirrel work. They even trap coyotes and stuff like that, or deer that get on runways. It's kind of a big thing.
Do they work for USDA or do they work for the Air Force?
No, they're USDA employees. Yep. But I know the Air Force forks over some money to help pay for their salaries, but they're hired under the USDA. This is just a project that a girl on our team is working on up in Grand Forks. I believe she's been testing how far like migratory birds will come onto a waste facility management area, and then she's pretty close to the airport, so they're just kind of testing how the birds are kind of going back and forth. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that I'm not 100% sure on, but yeah, so you can see here she's got a radio telemetry on this bird, and they're just kind of monitoring it where it goes from that wastewater facility and then where it migrates to later down the road, or if it comes back to that area. A lot of different things she's doing a lot of work on. She's actually in college still, so she's working full-time while in college, doing, I believe it's like her doctorate degree or research or senior research or whatever. Then another thing we assist with in our program in North Dakota, South Dakota, is going to these grain facilities, helping out with control of pigeons or blackbirds or sparrows, stuff like that. The biggest thing really that the USDA is involved in is feral swine damage. I'm sure if you've followed any sorts of wildlife, you've heard about the pigs down in Texas and Missouri and all that thing. The USDA is probably the biggest involvement in that, with trying to remove feral swine. I know I'm originally from Arkansas and grew up I have a farm in Missouri. We have a big issue with these pigs, and it caused a lot of damage. As you can see here, this is in a cornfield, but a lot of different things and methods that people do. I went to a meeting. they use drones and thermal drones to find these pigs, and then they're herding them with drones. They use all sorts of different traps. And to be honest, if that's where all the money is right now, pretty much is in the feral swine. So there's a ton of money going into that and a lot of job security. So if you're really wanting to get into the program, this is probably where I'd be focusing. But it's a lot of hard work, but they're doing all sorts of research too on how they can make poisons to put out there in the landscape, that they're having a lot of bounce back with killing a lot of non-target species. But we don't have any real pigs in North Dakota. We don't got none in South Dakota for sure, but they say there is some in North Dakota that are coming down from Canada. So there is a few things here. We just got some money to fly the border of Canada and North Dakota to try to prevent pigs from coming down. So yeah, this is just another thing we're involved in. Then there's a ton of other little projects that are always going on. I helped out with the prairie dog project here in South Dakota. We went around and poisoned a town that was coming off of BLM land onto private, so we had to control that. The 13-line ground squirrels are a huge thing right now. There's a lot of money getting involved in that. So, as you can see, Richardson's ground squirrels. I know, like in Bismarck, where our actual office is, they spend a lot of time in town and parks and stuff like that, trying to control the Richardson ground squirrels. But I haven't really helped out with any of this stuff, but I just know that's what we do. You can see here, North Dakota State helping out with doing some research. Looks like jackrabbits, stuff like that. It's pretty much as if you notice the thing, it's all around livestock or private property with agriculture, just trying to prevent that conflict that people have. Black-footed ferrets. This one was released in tribal land here in South Dakota, but you know, those are federally protected species. Looks like there's some bunch of dead rats or something like that people are doing. So yeah, here you can kind of see this is the way we assist landowners with the blackbird damage stuff. Put out these propane boomers, hook them up, and you spread them all throughout a sunflower field. This scares the birds and makes them want to go somewhere else. We use a lot of those for geese also. You can use them for deer.
Do those have like motion sensors, so they only go off when the blackbirds are there, or they
No.
just go off at regular intervals?
Yep, they're set on a timer, so you can move it from 1 minute all the way up to 3 hours. So you can go off every minute, or you can go off every 3 hours. It's kind of finicky. They're hard to work on, hard to get to work, but they work all right for about 4 days, and then things start getting used to it. Got in trouble one time. I had some of these close to a town, and people were calling the cops on thinking there was explosions, and people weren't being able to sleep because them things were going off every couple hours. Here's just some numbers of hours worked for us. Just some pictures. This is actually my plane right here. It's not me in there, but that's the plane I fly in pretty much every day. We spent 512 hours in the plane this year from January to October. We shot like 3,200 coyotes, so it's a pretty good year. Snow helped out. Just some other pictures of guys doing things in the job. You know, here's some owls that were trapped at the airport. You know, a bunch of us had a training here, so get to be outside a lot, do a lot of fun things. It's kind of why we do it. Talk about a few other things that the program has. I know down in the southeast, around the Carolinas, Alabama, they're doing a lot of rabies work. So they made this pellet, it's like a bait, and it's a vaccine pretty much for raccoons or possums. And they go around and an airplane kind of like what we have, a little bit bigger, and they just drop them out across the landscape. And they're doing a lot of testing on rabies down there, and raccoons is their primary thing, but they're doing some of that. Like I said, the feral swine is a big thing. They do a lot of aerial hunting for feral swine too, down in Texas, Oklahoma. like I said, a lot of trapping and just a lot of other things. We have the National Wildlife Research Facility in Colorado. It's in Fort Collins, I believe, wherever Colorado State is, which I believe is Fort Collins. But that's the world's leading research center. It's a really big building, but they can make like a room like this, and they'll literally make it a jungle. They'll put plants in there, control the temperatures and settings, and they do a lot of research on wildlife there. They have elk, coyotes, deer, lizards, and they got it all. I'm sure I'm missing some other things, but it's kind of just a look on what we offer as an agency and what we do to help protect people from problems. Any questions?
So it's like your typical day, just basically like coyote hunting for the most part? Or?
Pretty much. I'm a little different than most of the guys. So actually right now my pilot that I fly with, he flies the Black Hawk helicopters for the National Guard. He's in Alabama for 8 weeks. So I am kind of, my primary job duties aren't in store right now, but so like right now I'm doing hunter harvest. I'm doing studies or samples of hunter harvested ducks for that high path avian influenza. So I find hunters that have been shooting ducks and I sample them. I was actually supposed to just go to some hunterite colonies and meet with them about the high path avian influenza in their turkey barns. So we were doing like a survey of their property of what they can do to help improve not getting high path avian influenza. So just kind of day to day, different. It's different every day, but most of the time I wake up about 4 o'clock in the morning, me and my pilot have a cup of coffee, sit around in the hangar, and then we go out and hunt coyotes all day and then come home and do it again the next day. So I've shot, the most coyotes we've shot is 108 in one day, and I've shot about 700 shells one day. Shoulder was pretty sore the next day. So
What do you use to shoot?
we use a 12 gauge shotgun.
Oh.
Yeah, four buck. So.
I have a question. South Dakota is just now in the process of, I can't think of the name of it now, but it's they're in the process of coming up with a new plan to, actually it's to manage ecosystems, but they have species called, they're not necessarily rare, but they're called species of special concern.
Yep.
They're supposed to be good indicators of environmental quality. And 2 of the species that they've had in their past plans have been Richardson's and Franklin's ground squirrels.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, when they get to be a problem in agricultural land and you have to go out and control them, does that conflict with like the state's conservation plans?
Well, I'm guessing it does a little bit, but we're always working with the state. We have a good working relationship with the South Dakota Game and Fish, and I know the North Dakota guys have a good working relationship with them. So it's kind of finding that happy medium of, hey, these are, species of concern, but yet this one population here is causing some agriculture issues or whatever. So in those cases, if it's relocation of, taking let's say the ground squirrels in this case and trying to trap all of them and move them to somewhere else, the only bad thing when it comes to that is usually they just cause a problem for somebody else. But I'm sure it's just finding that happy medium of, taking a few to kind of stop the issues, but being able to balance the population still and not completely wipe them out.
Don't want to put you on a spot or anything, but I have a follow-up question on that. You're dealing with like ground squirrel problems in agriculture. Do they also create problems sometimes for wildlife populations?
Yeah, that's something that is probably above my pay level. I have heard that they could cause issues with nesting birds, destroying like pheasant nests or other ground nesting birds. But I don't know of any research that's so.
The reason I bring this up, I'm aware of a master's thesis that a graduate student did at South Dakota State University, looking at depredation of duck nests.
Right.
And they came to the conclusion one of the biggest predators of duck eggs up in the northeastern part of the state was Richardson's ground squirrels.
That don't surprise me a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of studies on turkey nests, and they found out almost like a very high percentage of turkey nests get predated on snakes.
Yeah.
It's not the miso-sized mammals,
When,
it's the snakes.
when you look at distribution maps for Richardson's ground squirrels, most of them just show that they're just up in the very northeastern corner of the state. I recently was made aware of a population probably not more than 10 miles from Mitchell.
Right.
So just straight up Highway 37, right on the Davidson County, Sanborn County line.
Right.
There's a big population of them on a guy's farm there.
Really?
They run it all over his pasture,
Yeah.
right next to his farmhouse.
Yeah, I've been on a few peoples that they've had some pretty big holes out there in their fields. Yep.
Let's have some of the other you who haven't asked questions recently asked questions.
What kind of like got you into like working for the USDA and like tracking?
Yeah, good question. So I just grew up hunting and fishing and liked to be outside. And really, since I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to do something in that field. But biggest thing for me that really kind of gave me my tall tale sign is when I came here and did an internship with the Game and Fish. Like I said, I did a habitat internship, and that was a lot of fun, but it wasn't my true passion, I guess. So then I did an internship as a wildlife damage specialist, and I was like, this is what I want to do. It's a good feeling to help a farmer or producer that's having livestock issues, and being able to resolve that conflict, and being able to be outside. Like I said, just grew up hunting, and it was a way for me to be able to do that every day pretty much. So it's kind of what got me into it. But once I did that internship, I knew that was the path I wanted to go down, and so I've made a career now for 5 years doing it with handling livestock issues. So
I know you started out with the state of South Dakota. Is it possible to get an entry-level job with USDA?
yeah, so like right now, we're trying to hire like 20 people to do what I was going to be doing today is that biohazard survey on these colonies. So there's like 20 openings for South Dakota. You'd be based out of Huron pretty much, but starting salary is about $40,000, and it's a 13-month term, which every government job is that way. So they say it's every 13 months, but it's mostly all full-time jobs. But like in that job, you'd just be going to these Hutterite colonies, and you're just literally doing a survey of their properties. So most all Hutterite colonies have turkey barns. So I just went to one that doesn't have any like hog netting around the barn, so it can't keep any of the birds from getting in. So pigeons or barn swallows or whatever, any kind of bird pretty much could just fly right in there. Well, they could be going to drink from a slough that has a bunch of ducks on it that has bird flu or high path avian influenza. Then they fly back into that barn, and then it's transferred into the turkeys. So there's a bunch of those kind of jobs. The airport biologist is more of it's not an entry level job, but we qualify for all that because we have wildlife degrees, and they're a little bit better paying, but there's a ton of those jobs out there. But like my actual job title is a biological technician, which is an entry level position, and I mean I get emails every day, probably 20, 30 job openings across the country that are out there for doing all sorts of different things, from the rabies to the coyote work to blackbirds to and there's just all kinds of opportunities out there. Anything you can imagine, really. We do it. So.
How do we find that information on job postings?
Yeah, it's a good question. So with the state, it's pretty easy. There's a state website. You go and it lists all the jobs They should actually be opening internships probably anytime now for the summer coming up. But with the federal government, it's a little trickier. There's USA Jobs, which is a good website to look at. There's a lot of jobs on there, and you can just kind of filter what you're looking for. But you know, like the job I have now, they open it to the public, but it was never posted on like USA Jobs. So it's hard to. That's the biggest complaint I have with my organization is being able for people to easily access the job applications. It's a kind of a hassle. A lot of people have that complaint too, but USA Jobs is a good one, like I said, and just knowing somebody like myself that could help you out, you know, contacting professors and they know people who are in the organization, and then that's the way most people get in, is just by knowing somebody else, and they can share the application or the job posting, and then they can apply. So, and I know like my boss, we were just talking the other day, like I said, they're trying to hire 20 people. They're only getting like 2 or 3 applications for these jobs. So there's a lot of opportunity out there if you're looking to get in, especially if you have any sort of experience with a firearm or wildlife at all. Like there's a lot of opportunity out there if you're willing to work hard and do it. And I know the pay is not great, but I think we all sign up for that whenever we come into this field. You know, our pay is not great, but you get to be outside every day and doing the things you really enjoy doing, and you get paid to do it. So
Is there any opportunities for advancement?
yeah, so it's one of the biggest reasons I moved from the game and fish to the federal side is the opportunity for growth. You know, so like I said, I'm at an entry-level position right now. The next step for me would probably be like that airport biologist. There are a whole 2 pay scales higher. So you'd go something like that, and then there's always a ton of management positions inside the federal government. So I'll just kind of give you a reference. My boss with the game and fish, the head boss that I had in my area, made about $70,000. My head boss with the federal government makes about 110. So big difference between like the state and the federal side, but there's a lot more opportunity for that growth with the federal government. But yeah, that'd just kind of be the process for me. It'd be like entry level, probably that airport biologist, and then once you get to certain pay scales with the federal government, you can qualify for higher end jobs. So then it would be more towards the management. You know, the bad thing about management is a lot more Zoom meetings and office work than field work. Pretty young guy still, so I'd want to be outside in the field if I can, but there is that opportunity out there.
You get time to go out and do any hunting on your own, or you get tired of it?
No, I don't get tired of it.
Do you guys have like good benefits too? Like, are there?
Yep, so the state had good benefits also. I don't really look into a whole lot of that, but I know like we get 5% retirement match with the state and with the federal government. We get both of that. We get a pension with the feds. We didn't get that with the state. You know, I accrue a certain amount of hours per pay period to take off, so it's not like a set. Usually most office jobs, you get 2 weeks off. I accrue a certain amount of hours per pay period. For example, I just took the whole month of September, from September 1st to September 21st, I took off. I didn't work at all during that time, so. And I still have plenty of time left to take off, so. You get a lot of good benefits like that, and you know, our bosses are super lenient. You know, like my wife just had a passing in her family, and I was like, hey, I need to take Monday off. He's like, okay, whatever, so. And we get a maxi flex schedule, which means you set your own hours, so it's not, you need to work 8 to 5. Like I said, most mornings I get up at 4 or 4:30, and my day starts at 4:30 and I'm done by 1 or 2 o'clock. So kind of can set your own hours, and it's really flexible. That was both ways with the game and fish and with the job I have now. So it makes it really nice when you talk to friends that have an 8 to 5 job or 9 to 5. They're just like, oh, I can't go do this. Well, I've been off work for 4 hours now. So.
your job that's just the least enjoyable part of it?
Yeah, I don't like getting up early. It's not super fun for me now, but I would say the dealing with some hothead producers is not super fun. You know, nobody likes getting yelled at or getting harsh words said to you, so that can get a little irritating, especially when you're just trying to help and you really have no control over what's happening at the beginning. I never really enjoyed that, but I do enjoy helping them people when you solve the issue and then you're their best friends, you know, so that's kind of nice. But
Do they,
that and then
do they help you, like teach you some techniques for, you know, reducing tensions when you're
Right.
dealing with farmers?
yeah, they definitely do, and I will say the training probably isn't the best with both programs, you know, the actual professional training, but it's just pretty much they say, hey, you know, just keep your cool, tell them you're there to help, and then if things escalate, pretty much just call your managers and then they take over from there, but, you know, and that's a good thing, your supervisors and managers are always on your side mostly, so, you know, they're not gonna say that you did this and you did that, but it's just keep your cool, kill them with kindness pretty much, say, hey, I'm here to help and I'm gonna do everything in my power to can, and they keep going at you, then you say, listen, here's this guy's number, if you have an issue with what's going on, you need to call him, and they take it from there, so you're not really in the doghouse too much the whole time. But, so that, and then, you know, I hate meetings and Zoom calls, there's a lot of those, but
Yeah.
that's with any job really, and, you know, if I could be out in the field every day and never have a meeting, it'd be great, but somebody's gotta check up on you every now.
I have a question about coyotes. Are most all coyotes a problem, or is it just certain selected
It's
individuals?
definitely certain selection. You know, it's a funny thing. You'll go even across a road, like a highway. One side of the highway, a population every year will have wildlife issues or, you know, livestock issues. They'll kill a calf or kill a sheep. You go across the road and there's never ever any issues over there. So it's very selected. And even sometimes you tell farmers, like, if you never have an issue with coyotes, like actually, you know, predating on livestock, you got good coyotes. Like, they just don't cause an issue.
Yeah. Some of them probably feed mostly on mice,
Right.
mice
Yeah,
and
I mean-
ground squirrels, and
I've cut open a lot of coyotes and their diets are mostly mice and grasshoppers, you know, and small mammals, so. But you do get coyotes that do kill livestock, that's definitely a thing, and, you know, that's most of the time the coyotes that are predating on livestock are older, more mature coyotes, you know, probably 4 or 5 years older. So they're really smart, they won't have much for teeth, which amazes me how they're able to kill anything and they got like hardly any teeth, but it's definitely a thing. Certain populations or certain pockets always have these issues and others just don't.
you ever have landowners who blame coyotes for finding their animals
Yeah,
dead, but
all the time.
it's
It's
not,
most
doesn't have
popular
anything to do
thing.
with them?
Yeah. So there's different ways you can tell when, like, let's say a newborn calf is born. They're born with this white filament on the bottom of their hooves. If the calf was up walking around, that filament rubs off pretty much. So, you know, when the landowner would call me and I'd go out there and assess the situation, that's the first thing I'd look at. Well, his hooves still have that white soft filament. He is actually never walking around. He's probably born a stillborn, which is born dead, and then the coyotes fed on it. Which will help that landowner, you know, because there's a lot of coyotes around, but that is, I would say 90% of the time, that's the situation. The coyote is, you know, a calf died of just natural causes, got sick, and then the coyotes come in and fed on it, and landowners freak out a little bit, but that's where you have to say, you know, I don't wanna say, hey, sir, like, I don't wanna call you a liar, but this is the things I'm seeing. Still help you out, still do what we can do, but, yeah. Sheep are the biggest thing that coyotes predate on. They love sheep.
Yeah. Got a couple of questions.
Oh.
Does USDA, I know this is not a problem in this area, but in states like Idaho, Montana, Does USDA ever have to do any control of wolves?
Yep. So Idaho is the biggest state when it comes to wolves. They do. So Idaho is a little bit different than other places because in Idaho they have a legal wolf hunting season, and Montana is the same way. So they're able to lethally remove wolves there. But you start getting into other states where they don't have a hunting season and they're more endangered. They have to use non-lethal practices. So I wish I had the video, but I saw a video of a guy who was using a drone. He had a thermal drone and he watched this wolf come into a sheep herd pretty much. And he literally got that drone down right over it and was just chasing it with the drone and chased it off pretty much. So that was like a technique that they use to keep them out. They use electric fence, they use all sorts of different things. But wolves, they do, they do my job for wolves in Idaho where we fly for wolves. I know a guy in Montana that traps grizzly bears. Said he's got a bigger set of stones than I do, but they'll go in there, a grizzly will kill some livestock, and then they use like a snare trap pretty much. It's a foot trap, but when the bear steps in it, it shoots a snare over his leg, and then he has to walk up to that grizzly bear while the thing is held by some cable. I said, not for me. But he does do that. He's got some really cool pictures of that.
I thought they used those big barrel traps.
Yeah, they do use them too, but for some odd reason they say the grizzlies have a hard time going in there. They're more for the black bears.
Okay.
So they use a lot of foot traps for the grizzlies. So yeah, I know guys that do grizzlies. I just saw a job posting down in Florida for the panthers down there, the mountain lions down in Florida doing that stuff. So really, whatever tickles your fancy, there's something out there for you. I'm not walking up on grizzly bears. I was just in Montana elk hunting and I seen a grizzly bear and I said, I'm not doing that. So.
I was just watching last 2 nights in a row. There's part of a new Ken Burns documentary on the American buffalo, they call them, bison.
Yep.
And it was really, really good. And made me wonder, I suppose bison can probably take care of their own offspring.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know them very well, but I'm sure they can. They're pretty big.
Yeah. They were showing one of them was, when the bison were almost extinct in North America, and they were trying to start up some new herds, to keep the species going from going extinct, and they were transporting some. I think it was from the Brooklyn Zoo in New York out, back out to the west, and they were trying to transport them in trains, and one of them went right through the side of the train.
Yeah, the Ted Turner has a big ranch here in South Dakota, and he's got a ton of bison on it, and we fly over their ranch all the time.
They seem to do well on their own, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other questions?
Well, if I had just one thing to say about kind of choosing your career path, get out there and try to, like I said, those internships are a real good way to get your foot in the door, but just learn what you like to do. I mean, in South Dakota here, you got the game fish and parks. You can work for the Park Service, the fisheries, the wildlife side. A lot of different opportunities out there to just find what your passion is and to do it. And that's the way you get in, I wasn't the most qualified for the job I had, but I knew my boss that with the game and fish, he knew I worked hard and he gave me a chance, and that leads to opportunities. So just don't hesitate to do something that you think would be good for your career if that's what you want to do. So there's a lot of, like I said, with us or National Park Service or BLM, or there's a lot of different agencies out there that have opportunities. So
What's the saying? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
yeah, I still feel like I work, but it sure is fun. I have to report to a boss, unfortunately, still. So, but it is a pretty good job. I can't complain.
All right. Well, thank you.